Our other top story tonight, how safe is your child's school bus? And how often are those buses involved in accidents?
8 News anchor Carrie O'Brien investigates and finds some districts are not reporting their crashes.
A school bus crash can be a parent's worst nightmare, and last year our area saw several. In April, there were 3 in 2 days. In one, a Henrico school bus and pickup truck collide, injuring 4 students. In this one, a Chesterfield school bus was rear-ended, causing a chain reaction on Interstate 64. 11 students were treated for minor injuries. And the most frightening of the 3 was when an ice cream truck crashed head-on into a Chesterfield school bus. 7 students were hurt. One of those students told us at the time it was terrifying.
All of a sudden it was warm blood and it was all in my ear.
Was this just one rough week on the roads, or are school bus crashes on the rise? Curious 8 News pulled the crash records for the last 3 years for Henrico, Chesterfield, and Richmond schools. Now a crash can include anything from backing into a pole to colliding with another vehicle. In Henrico, we found crashes were actually on the decline, steadily dropping from 66 in 2009 to 28 last year.
We have over 600 buses and we travel almost 9 million miles a year, and our accident rate is less than 0.9 accidents per 100,000 miles driven. So I think that's safer than most vehicles on the road.
But in Chesterfield, school bus crashes more than doubled. There were 14 during the school year last year, compared to 6 the previous year.
When you travel approximately 9 to 10 million miles a year, you're going to have accidents.
And to put it in better perspective, that's 14 crashes out of 600 buses on the road.
The school bus is a difficult vehicle to drive. It's large, you know, over 40 feet long. It's wide.
Of the 200 school buses in Richmond, 16 were involved in accidents last year. But we can't really tell you how the district is doing overall. All districts are required by law to report crashes to the State Department of Education. Yet Richmond schools failed to complete their report for the 2010-2011 school year. This is the form they submitted to the state, and you can see down the line next to crashes, injuries, and damage, nothing but zeros. And no, that's not because Richmond had an exceptionally safe year on the roads. In fact, that year, a Richmond school bus collided with an SUV, killing a man. It wasn't until we asked for the records that anyone noticed Richmond schools hadn't properly completed their report. So how does this happen? We asked Andy Hawkins, the chief operating officer for Richmond schools.
I really don't know. I think it was, we had a transition from one director to the other. I've contacted the state. They've assured me that all of our data is in there right now. This has been corrected.
Parents, you can soon view your school district's crash reports online. Sometime next month, the Virginia Department of Education will begin posting the crash records for every school district in the state on their website. So if a school district isn't completing their reports, it will now be very easy to spot. Carrie O'Brien, 8 News.
What an eye-opener. And tonight at 6, Carrie O'Brien takes a closer look at who's driving your child's bus and the training they receive when our special investigation into school bus safety continues.
A series of school bus accidents here in Metro Richmond prompted our 8 News investigation into school bus safety. Last April, we saw 3 crashes in just 2 days. One, a head-on collision with an ice cream truck. In this crash on Interstate 64, the Chesterfield bus driver was charged with following too closely. And in 2011, a Richmond school bus collides with an SUV, killing a man.
I heard this boom noise, and then you could hear something like it was crashing and rolling. By the time I got there, one person had already been ejected, laying on the side where it looked, and was bleeding from the head.
The bus driver was cited for failing to yield to the right-of-way. These images of twisted metal, broken glass, and scared students got us wondering, who's behind the wheel of your child's bus?
They have to have a physical. They have to go through pre-employment drug testing. and then they're put in a random pool once they're hired. They probably have more classes than any other classification of employees other than teachers and administrators.
Dennis Lewis, the director of student transportation in Chesterfield, and Charles Pyle, spokesperson for the Virginia Department of Education, say the training drivers get is extensive.
There are 24 hours of classroom training.
The state also requires all drivers have more than 20 hours behind the wheel, and half of that time has to be with kids on the bus.
In Richmond, the training doesn't stop there.
They have to be refreshed every year.
Chesterfield County schools go above and beyond the state requirements.
We do about 60 hours of classroom and behind the wheel training.
But despite all the training, when we dug through those crash reports, we found in almost every district more than half of the collisions were preventable.
If it's preventable, we look at in detail of what the accident was. Was it backing into a stationary object? Was it making a left turn, making a right turn?
Henrico, Chesterfield, and Richmond all tell us they review every accident.
We look at the types of accidents we're having, and what we do is tailor that class based on the types of accidents that we're having.
And if the crash is considered preventable, the driver is often sent back for more training. Richmond Schools has a partnership with GRTC.
They're also sent over to GRTC to use their simulator, to use their bus simulator for some additional training.
All three districts say they're constantly working to keep their drivers sharp on the road.
We're always looking at ways to do things better and more efficiently. Have we had any bus accidents, and if so, why?
Anytime there's an accident or a bus crash, it's a concern.
Overall, we do a great job. Our drivers are well trained.
Perhaps the proof is in the numbers. Of the 16,000 school buses on the road statewide, 533 were involved in crashes. That's 3% of the fleet. And no one on board lost their life in a crash.
When you look at school buses, and you look at the other means that children have for going to and from school, by far, riding on the school bus is the safest way to go to school and home from school.
Carrie O'Brien, 8 News.
Our special investigation into school bus safety continues tomorrow. 8 News anchor Carrie O'Brien takes a look at who's inspecting your child's school bus. She finds some districts are missing serious problems with things like emergency exits, brakes, and more. That's tomorrow, starting on 8 News at 5. How safe is your child's school bus? 8 News anchor Carrie O'Brien's done some investigating, and in some districts, there are high marks for safety, but others fail to spot serious mechanical defects.
A rash of school bus crashes last year prompted 8 News to take a look at school bus safety as the new school year gets rolling. We wanted to know, how safe is that big yellow bus you put your child on 5 days a week? Those buses are packed with kids. They get a lot of wear and tear, and statewide, they travel millions of miles.
200 million miles traveled by some 16,000 buses in all kinds of weather.
Each school district is responsible for maintaining, inspecting, and repairing their own school buses. State regulations require school buses be inspected every 45 days. Richmond, Chesterfield, and Henrico schools all tell us they inspect more frequently, every 30 days.
They go into the engine, they go under the bus, they look at tires, they look at all the safety items on the vehicle.
We're looking at steering components, looking at brakes, tires. We actually go inside looking at the bus, checking out the seats.
In addition to those monthly inspections, every day before the driver picks up your child, they do a pre-trip check. They walk up and down the aisles, check the seats, check the windows, and make sure those signals are properly working.
And also when they return the bus to their parking location, they do a post-trip inspection of the vehicle.
But despite the daily checks and those monthly inspections, look what happens when a state inspector randomly stops by. During the Virginia Department of Education's last visit to Richmond schools in 2010, an inspector found seat bottoms not latched, a flat inner tire, a defective driver's seat belt, and air brake system failure. Richmond Schools Chief Operating Officer says there's no excuse for it.
Those buses are inspected every 30 days. We shouldn't have issues like that. That should not have happened. You know, just bottom line, that shouldn't have happened.
Richmond Schools tells us repairs were made immediately after the state inspector stopped by.
We're always looking at ways to do things better and more efficiently.
Henrico Schools missed a few things too. In May, the state paid the district a visit. The inspector found defects on 6 buses. The problems range from a rear emergency window rusted shut to seat bottoms not latched to a defective emergency door. Henrico tells us there's a good explanation.
Those particular buses you just referenced are spare buses, so they were not on the road. With the training our drivers get, they should catch those items during their pre-trip inspections.
This work order shows repairs have since been made. Still, Henrico officials admit there's always room for improvement.
We use the audit reports from the state to help us get better.
Only Chesterfield earns A's for inspections. A random visit from a state inspector finds no deficiencies.
That's our goal.
Chesterfield says their mechanics are top-notch.
My crew, I can speak for them. Most of them grew up in Chesterfield County, and they rode buses, and now they're married and have children that ride these buses. So my guys take it personal.
And check this out. The last time anyone with the State Department of Education stopped by Chesterfield for a random inspection was 3 years ago, May of 2009. And that might be because 8 News has discovered there's been a 75% reduction in staffing at the state level. Tonight at 6, we'll talk about how some fear that could have an impact on school bus safety. Carrie O'Brien, 8 News.
All right, stay tuned for that. And if you have a story you'd like Carrie to investigate, email her or send her a message on Facebook.
Tonight, our investigation into school bus safety continues. At 5, we dug through inspection reports and found some districts overlooked serious defects with the buses. We've also learned budget cuts have drastically reduced the number of state inspectors checking up on your child's school district. 8 News' Carrie O'Brien continues to investigate.
Every parent wants to know when they put their child on the school bus that they're traveling in a safe vehicle, that the brakes, the engine, and safety features like emergency doors are all in tip-top shape. Each school district is responsible for maintaining, inspecting, and repairing their own buses.
We're looking at steering components, looking at brakes, tires. We actually go inside looking at the bus, checking out the seats.
Periodically, the Virginia Department of Education stops by to check up on the school districts.
What we're looking for is the documentation that all of the things that they're supposed to do have been done.
They also do a random inspection of some of the school buses. We reviewed those state inspection reports for Chesterfield, Richmond, and Henrico schools and found 2 districts missed some serious defects. State inspectors looking over buses in Henrico found a defective emergency door, a rear emergency window rusted shut, and seat bottoms that had not been latched. Henrico Schools tells us there's an explanation for that.
Those particular buses you just referenced are spare buses, so they were not on the road.
And during a visit in Richmond, state inspectors found failure with the air brake system, a defective driver's seat belt, seats not latched, and a flat inner tire.
Those buses are inspected every 30 days. We shouldn't have issues like that.
Chesterfield schools earned high marks for their inspections, but we also noticed the last time state inspectors checked in on Chesterfield was back in May of 2009. 3 years ago. And it's been 2 years since state inspectors paid Richmond schools a visit.
With the staff that we have, we are able to set a goal. An aggressive goal, an optimistic goal of trying to reach at least half of Virginia's 132 school districts during the course of the year. That's a tall order when you consider the topography of Virginia, the distances involved, and the number of people that we have.
It turns out state budget cuts have led to a reduction in staffing at the Virginia Department of Education. There were once 8 state inspectors, but now there are only 2 inspectors to cover all the school districts in the state.
Would we rather have more people? Sure. But is that a factor in what we're seeing in terms of the statistics about pupil transportation safety? We don't have any indication that the safety of bus travel to and from school has suffered. We feel that we have a good record in Virginia in terms of safely transporting children to and from school.
While Virginia's safety record may be good now, local school officials worry about trouble down the road.
It doesn't seem appropriate, you know, for 130 or so school divisions. I mean, just do the math. It doesn't seem appropriate to have 2 people.
I kind of like to see them go, you know, back to where they had some more people in there. Chesterfield County, we're lucky, you know, we've got a good fleet of buses, but what concerns me is these localities that are smaller and have a tight budget, and they have to keep their buses a lot longer than we do.
If we see an issue that has to do with pupil transportation, it's something we're going to follow up on.
Carrie O'Brien, 8 News.
Now, if you have a story you would like Carrie to investigate, you can email her or message her on Facebook.